Hello and welcome. Before moving on with the deployment of the DevOps Buddy application on AWS, we need to make sure that the whole infrastructure is sound and the various layers can talk to each other. In this lecture, we will set up the AWS user and IAM roles with the right entitlements. Create a S3 bucket to host the DevOps Buddy application external configuration. Create a Bastion host on the public subnet to allow SSH connection to boxes in the private subnet. Create a Linux AMI box in the private subnet. This will host the Spring Boot application. Create a Linux AMI box in the public subnet. This will host the Apache HTTP server. Verify that we can connect to the newly created S3 configuration bucket from both the private and public subnets, as well as from our own PC. Verify that we can SSH into the private subnets from the Bastion host. And finally, set up MySQL on RDS, thus verifying the connectivity between the Spring Boot and RDS private subnets. If you have followed the lecture on how to set up IAM, you should already have a DevOps Buddy AWS account set up. You should also have an IAM group called Developers with EC2 and S3 full access. If you haven't, please go back to that lecture and follow the instructions. Once you have the account set up, I'd like you to add the RDS full role to the Developers group. To do this, log in to the AWS console, click on IAM and then on Groups, click on Developers and then on Attach Policy, type RDS in the filter field and select Amazon RDS Full Access. Now click on Roles and create a new role called DevOps Buddy-Full and attach the same policies, which are Amazon RDS Full Access, Amazon EC2 Full Access, and Amazon S3 Full Access. As a reminder, groups and users are used for direct interaction with AWS through the command line and/or the AWS SDK. IAM roles are used to allow EC2 instances to interact with the chosen services without having to store any private or public keys. Now, we will create a new S3 bucket to host the DevOps Buddy application configuration, that is the content of the .devopsbuddy Buddy folder currently stored locally on your PC. From the AWS dashboard, click on S3 and then on Create Bucket. Make sure to name the bucket with a unique name. In my case, I named it Marco Tedone-DevOps Buddy-config. We want this bucket to be accessed only from our VPC or from our own PC. I've created a policy file that you use to set up this permission and have attached it to this lecture list of files. Please feel free to pause the video, download the file, and update it with your details. You will need to change the IP address with your own and the VPC ID with your own. To attach a policy to the newly created bucket, you can click on the Properties button on the top right, select Permissions and then Edit Bucket Policy. Then just copy the file content, click Save and then Save again. To test that you can access the bucket from your PC, you can run the following command from the command line: AWS S3 ls ---- profile DevOps Buddy, or whatever profile you have set up during the lecture on how to store profile images on S3. The command should come back with the two buckets you have in S3, one for the images and one for the configuration. Now, you can copy the content from your local .devopsbuddy Buddy folder to the newly created S3 bucket with the command AWS S3 sync ~/.devopsbuddy space S3:// the name of your bucket -- profile DevOps Buddy. The AWS S3 sync command synchronizes the source and the target folder contents. The first time you run this command, it will upload all files. Any subsequent runs will only upload the files that have changed. You can also run the command the other way around, that is, synchronize the content of your local folder from what's contained in S3, but we won't need to do this right now. The other thing you will want to do is to set up encryption and rest for these files, and possibly choose a reduced redundancy storage option, which is cheaper. RDS can be generally chosen when the bucket content can be easily recreated. To set up encryption and RDS, you can select all files in the configuration bucket and then the Properties button on the right. Then select Reduced Redundancy and AES-256 and click Save. As a reminder, by default all files in an S3 bucket are private by default, therefore they are not accessible from the internet. With AES-256, we have added a layer of protection by encrypting the data at rest.